Welcome back to the Profit Builder Unscripted. I'm excited about my guest, Roger Blue, who is talking today about his dad, who is a contractor in Stafford, Kansas. And he talks a little bit about his dad and his philosophy about running his business and really kind of his philosophy about how he ran his life. I love this story and I'm excited to be able to share it with you today. So let's go ahead and jump in. I am so grateful to have my guest here today, Roger Blue. And Roger and I met about a year ago under some rather unfortunate circumstances. I actually met Roger at his dad's funeral. And I knew Roger's dad just a little bit because he lived in the same assisted living facility that my in-laws live in. And I asked Roger to be a guest here today because Roger was the one who delivered the eulogy for his dad. And not only did he do an extraordinary job just delivering it, but his message really touched me. It touched me as a daughter. And it also touched me as somebody who works with people in the contracting industry, that Roger's dad was a contractor. And so Roger, thank you. Thank you for being here. And thank you
You're welcome.
being a guest. And thanks for sharing this story. I know this isn't, necessarily easy. I'm asking you to reread your dad's eulogy. And especially that I know we're just up on a 1-year anniversary for that. So thank you. I really appreciate that. I appreciate your generous heart for being willing to do this today. So I'm going to let you maybe just take a minute and talk a little bit about, how you decided to write what you wrote about your dad and came to, I don't know, just structure, if you will, the eulogy that you wrote. Like, what was it? How were you inspired? And then I would like you to read it. Like I said, I think it's a beautiful eulogy, and I think you did just an amazing job.
Well, I guess in terms of the structure of it, my two brothers and I sat down and we kind of listed out some things that we thought were important, things that were memorable, things that might connect with the community and the family and friends. And then I was tasked with delivering the eulogy. So the night before the funeral, I sat down and began to put the pieces of it together. And the metaphor of a carpenter just seemed to fit. And the pieces just seemed to fit well into that metaphor. So that's kind of how it came together. I hope that gets at the answer to your question.
Yeah, totally. And your dad built. You're from a small community, so Stafford, Kansas, and but your dad did remodeling work for many years. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a carpenter and worked for several other contractors for years, and then kind of midway through his career, he started his own small company here in a small town, and doing construction work in a small town means you're going to do a variety of things.
Yeah.
And so he did build houses. Most of the work was remodels, kitchens, bathrooms, additions, basements, the whole gamut of things. So he was tasked to do many things in the community, and as a carpenter, as a contractor, and so the experience is really quite varied, working in a small town, and it's perhaps different from a bigger community where a lot of the work is building large developments, and it's nothing like that. So it's
a lot of the people I deal with and I talk with,
oh,
and I work with are exactly that. They're remodelers.
Yeah,
They work
and
in
it's
people's homes, and you do end up having to be my words, jack of all trades, especially in small communities where you have to be able to do electrical and plumbing and,
yes, yes,
uh,
yes,
all of that, as well as carpentry. So,
yes.
yeah. And the community that you guys lived in and grew up in, when your dad came back to that community, I know that my in-laws had them do some work at their house, and then
Yeah.
talking to a bunch of other people in that community, that he touched a lot of lives in the process. And that would, I think that's also what made when you read your eulogy, it's like you have your perspective about, like, you working with your dad and for your dad, and
Right.
and what you saw in him doing, but was also really neat in talking to other people afterwards, was how much respect your dad had in the community for the work
Yeah.
that he did and the people that he served and who he supported. And I think it's just a good example that sometimes we don't always know the difference we make in people's lives. We don't always know how we touch people and how we make a difference. And yeah, so anyway, I'm gonna let you take it from here and
Okay.
read the eulogy, and then we'll probably chat about it a few minutes.
All right. Here we go. Straight, level, plumb, square. That's the carpenter's mantra. It starts with straight and level. In the south alley at the lumberyard, there's a straight, level line drawn on a wall. Very early in Dad's career, he bought his first high-quality level at the lumberyard in Stafford. But before he left the lumberyard that day, he laid that level against that wall and traced that straight, level line. In the decades that followed, every new level he bought was checked against that line. When he started his own company, he allowed only his levels to be used on his job sites. The precision of every job he did can be traced to that one straight, level line. That straight, level line perhaps also represents the greater measure of his life with his family, his friends, and his community. To his family, friends, and community, he gave a lifetime of service. Dad served in the Marine Corps from 1951 through 1953 during the Korean War. Mom and Dad had been married only a few weeks when Dad got his induction notice. After basic training, he was sent to CB Construction School. He finished 7th out of a class of 1,200. That earned him a plum assignment, opening a new carpenter shop at Marine Corps Air Station Tustin in Santa Ana, California. Dad sometimes joked that he fought the Battle of Southern California. He was asked to select 4 other Marines from his CB class to fill out the crew for the new shop. He told me that selecting those 4 men was among the most difficult things he'd ever done, because he knew that the men he selected would remain safely in Southern California, and anyone not selected would be promptly sent to Korea. The weight of this decision followed him for much of his life. He served as a baseball coach, both here in Stafford and in Attica. Soon after moving to Attica, he was asked to fill in as a Little League coach for one game. The coach dropped off the gear bag with bats, balls, and helmets. Dad coached the team that night, but what he did not know was that the coach had actually moved out of town, and Dad was now the full-time coach. He often shared a story that sounds like it came right out of the Bad News Bears. During a game, the pitcher called a timeout, and the catcher trotted to the mound. The catcher then called in all of the players to the mound. A spectator asked Dad if he should go out to the mound too. Dad replied that he trusted the boys and he would go out to the mound only if they called for him. Soon enough, the boys broke the huddle and the game continued. He learned later that the pitcher's nerves got the best of him. His teammates formed a screen around the mound while the pitcher vomited. Then the boys kicked dirt over the mess and went back to their positions. Not a soul in the ballpark knew any of that had happened. He was very proud of those boys, and he spoke of them often through the years. Dad was also active as a volunteer with Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts, especially when Mom was a den mother. Not surprisingly, we Cub Scouts did a lot of craft projects involving woodworking. Mm-hmm. And Dad endured more than his share of really bad Boy Scout camp cooking. During one memorable outing, when I was a tenderfoot, my platoon leader, a first-class scout, did all the cooking. The camp out was in the spring, and we woke to a cool morning. I was starving. The platoon leader cooked what he called big eggs. Basically, beat the eggs, dump them in a skillet that was far too hot, and leave them alone until the curd fully set. Of course, they were scorched, and the first bite nearly made me puke. But I was so hungry, I grabbed the ketchup bottle and poured it on. Dad saw me wolfing down those eggs and figured he'd better get over and get some too. He nearly lost it with the first bite, but did not show it. Big eggs became a long-running joke in our family. Mm-hmm. But I also experienced Dad cooking a camp breakfast on his ancient Coleman stove for about a dozen Webelow scouts and their dads. I remember as a 10-year-old boy watching Dad prepare that meal, and I felt so incredibly proud of him and proud to be his son. Dad also served as a volunteer firefighter. My brothers and I remember the sound of his old 1960 F-100 straight six, 3 on the tree, winding up for each gear, screaming away towards the fire station. That must have been quite a rough ride over Union Street's rough bricks. Along with his devotion and service to his family, friends, and community, Willie engaged in a lifetime of silliness. One summer day a few years ago, Dad's grandsons were visiting. Dad's great-grandsons were visiting. They were out in the yard having a water fight. Great-grandpa Willie surprised everyone when he stepped outside brandishing a fully loaded super soaker water gun. He used his superior firepower to quickly subdue the boys. We have no idea why or how, in his late 80s, Dad obtained a super soaker. Dad gave his grandchildren their first driving experience while visiting Grandma and Grandpa Blue in Stafford. This became an important rite of passage for them, just as it had been for my brothers and me. As with his own children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, any baby who made eye contact with Willie received his signature quack in return, usually evoking a smile and a giggle. Dad enjoyed engaging curious children who might wander onto a job site. Dennis and Linda Siefkes reminded me just last evening of Dad giving their then 5-year-old son, John, a pile of scrap lumber to build whatever he wanted. And just a few days ago, I received a message from Dale Latta, remembering Dad when he was part of the crew building an addition to the Latta home in 1960. Dale wrote, "I'd have been a nearly 7 or 8-year-old. I was fascinated by the whole process, probably had 1,000 questions. I remember his kindness and his patience." We also remember the devotion to his friends, particularly his longtime crime partners in crime, Don Allison and John Jones. For a lot of years, Dad, Don, and John fished together at Stafford Lake and had weekend fishing trips to Lake Wilson or Lake Canopolis. Don and John were great role models for my brothers and me. Watching the 3 of them together showed us the importance of developing and maintaining close friendships, even as we grew into adults. Fighting the Battle of Southern California in the 1950s meant there were beach parties. Mom and Dad met with their Marine Corps friends in Huntington Beach many Sunday afternoons. Dad spoke fondly of the friends he made in the service and attended numerous reunions with them around the Midwest in the 1980s and 1990s. While in the Marine Corps, Dad's skills as a carpenter prompted some Radar O'Reilly moments as several officers approached him to build things like high chairs and Adirondack furniture in the base carpenter shop. Dad said he really liked the Adirondack chair plan one captain brought in, so he cut out enough material for 2. The second eventually made its way back to Sylvia, Kansas, and was enjoyed for many years by our grandpa Ed. We remember one particular Halloween party with the Cub Scouts when Dad truly went above and beyond. Mom made a little orphan Annie costume for him to wear. red dress, white bloomers, curly wig, with the lenses of his glasses covered with white paper and narrow slits to see through. No one knew who Annie was.
Hmm.
He sidled up close to Walt Kuntz. Walt and Levina lived across the street from us and were dear friends. Walt didn't recognize Dad, wanted no part of the oversized Annie, and immediately stood up and hustled away. Willie loved every second of being little orphan Annie.
Mhm.
Dad was good at pulling pranks, but he was equally able to enjoy being pranked. One of his favorite stories begins with him trying to prank Margie Milton. He put a fake parking ticket on her car not long after she first got her driver's license. For Dad's next birthday, Margie dropped by the house with a beautifully decorated birthday cake. Although the icing was real, the cake was just a big block of styrofoam. Oh, how Dad loved to tell that story. As young men, Dad offered my brothers and me opportunities to learn about the relationship between excellence and integrity. From our Boy Scout days with Dad, we remembered the last task when breaking camp is to police the site. We were to make sure we left nothing behind. Dad had an amazing ability to find whatever we had overlooked. It was usually easy to make sure we picked up everything we brought, but Dad insisted we pick up anything left by previous campers. This is a ritual we still follow when camping today. One of the more poignant lessons for me on the relationship between excellence and integrity came the first summer I worked for Dad. I was home from college, and the main project for the summer was to build a hog farrowing house for Dennis and Linda Siefke's. I was sent to the roof to install 4 long ridge vents along the peak of the roof. Dad did not agree with the way I was going about it. He insisted that all 4 vents be precisely lined up, each with the next and all with the building. I protested by saying, "It's just a hog house." That was the wrong thing to say. Dad pointed to the far end of the field, east of the job site, and said, "Sooner or later, Dennis is going to be out there swathing or baling hay, and when he turns around at the far end of the field, he will be lined up exactly with the roof line, and he will see those vents are crooked. And then he will see it every time he looks at that building." That lesson of always doing it right, whether hog house or mansion, is one that was hard to learn and much harder to live by. But that was the mantra: straight, level, plumb, square. Carpentry does have its moments of perfection, but for the carpenter, perfection is hidden among the expected. Dad did a small project on the church parsonage. It had a flat roof over the back entrance that was prone to leaking. Dad's solution was to cover the flat roof with a sloping roof. He sent the bill to the church board, and they responded by saying they were not sure if they should pay him because they couldn't tell whether he'd actually done anything. The sloping roof looked like it had always been there and was always meant to be there. Perfection hidden among the expected. There is so much that a carpenter does perfectly that is simply not seen and therefore not appreciated. Although there are so many wonderful things we can say about Willie, we also acknowledge that there is likely so much more perfection that we simply don't know about. The perfection hidden among the expected. Straight, level, plumb, square.
Thank you. I love that. I loved it as much this time as the first time I heard you say it. So
thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, that was awesome.
It's always just to read that again brings back a lot of memories and a lot of feelings, and it means a lot to me to be able to share that. It's an honor to do that for Willie.
Yeah, thank you, Roger. I so appreciate it. Yeah, I so appreciate it. And yeah, so thank you. I'm a little bit emotional. So I'm a little thrown off right now, but I'll just say, like, you know, I listened to that, and like I listened to it as a daughter. I listened to it as somebody in a community. I listened to it as you know, again, serving this industry and this trade, and I just, you know, I love that, you know, it's it was really clear that your dad took a lot of pride. Willie took a lot of pride in what it
Yeah.
is that he did.
Yes.
And he wasn't willing to compromise on that. And he was a very fun and humane person in the process, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, it could be playful yeah, just very down to earth all at the same time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
good man, and he raised an amazing 3 sons. And thank you.
Oh gosh, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, Dad and your father-in-law go a long way back. Dad and Carol were scoutmasters together before I was born, so they go
Okay.
back a long, long ways. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Another salt of the earth, good human being who I
yeah,
miss
yeah.
also.
Carol was the best. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Good man.
yeah,
Well, Roger, thank you. I so appreciate you sharing this again. I know that, we're on the 1-year anniversary, and
yeah.
it takes courage and a special heart to be willing to come and share this story. So thank you. And thanks again, everybody, for being here today and listening or watching if you're on YouTube. And make sure to join or subscribe below. And we'll look forward to seeing you next time on the Profit Builder Unscripted.